Hank, we're live.
Great. Well, welcome everybody to our Educator Preparation Subcommittee of PEPSC meeting. You were sent all kinds of rules and licensure policies to review, and we're going to walk through those today and make a decision as to whether they should be recommended as is, or if we have any edits we'd like to suggest on these policies, or any questions that we have about them, so that Dr. Tomberlin and Dr. Seiberg and Evans can help us with those. And I think we should go just straight down in order and go through these, if that's okay with everybody. It seems like we got mostly the uncontroversial license rules. So thank you for that. That was
yeah.
We did that especially for you, Hank.
I still appreciate it. The first one's the licensure 013 and rule points 0307, the add-on teaching license. I had that one to review. So as I walk through that one, and I'm happy to pull anything up that people want to see, but I know you've got it in front of you as well.
Did you want me to share anything, Hank, or you?
It depends on the group. As everybody, can they see the policy that we're talking about? Can you pull it up yourself, or would you rather Kim pull it up for us?
I can see it, but I'm fine if Kim pulls it up too.
I pulled it up too, so I've got it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So add-on teaching license, when I read through this, it seemed consistent with the current policy. It was clear to understand. I had one question, which has been maybe a question in the back of my mind. When we say that you've got to satisfy exam requirements to add on an area, does that just mean the Praxis 2 or Pearson content tests, or does that also include EdTPA for that area?
That would, so it's a great question. NCDPI construes licensure examination requirements as both the content and the pedagogy. So the answer to that question would be, the way DPI would interpret this is that is content and pedagogy. And we do that, we're construing it that way because not passing either one of those examinations would potentially put the educator in a limited license situation. That's the trigger that we're trying to avoid with this add-on policy, is that the educator is stacking up licensure requirements and unable to fulfill them, and therefore going into the limited license. So it's a great question. And I do want to point out that you've got the non-controversial ones, as you say, but you do have one that was pointed out by DPI as being a change and something different.
Yeah. Okay. I guess the only question I would have is there a way to make the EdTPA requirements specific within? Because I don't know that we've all recognized that was the case. In fact, I feel like there have been people that we've added on licensure to. Was there a rule at some point that if they took the other Praxis 2 while they were in their EPP, alongside of, they could be licensed in both areas together? Or was it always, once EdTPA got here, that they had to do EdTPA and the Praxis or Pearson tests?
So that's a great question. There currently, my understanding of current practice is, let's say you're elementary ed, and as an elementary ed, you're definitely completing 24 hours towards reading. Right. So you could come out being duly recommended in elementary and reading. According to this policy, the EPP could recommend you for whatever the base license is, whatever that one license that's considered the base license. But you couldn't add on that reading. They couldn't simultaneously recommend you for reading unless the licensure examinations were completed for whatever is considered the base test. You could do it provisionally, you could do it, but you couldn't come out and recommend, hey, we're going to recommend elementary and reading, and you've cleared the reading by 24, or you could only clear the reading by 24 as an add-on if you've already passed the licensure exams for the elementary license, which is the
But
base.
you don't have to complete 2 ed TPAs, for instance.
No, that's correct. That is correct. And you could hold that recommendation in abeyance, presumably, and once the candidate passed the licensure exams, you could say, okay, they're adding on, and the EPP is going to recommend by 24. I don't think you guys have to recommend when it's an add-on, though, once you do the initial recommendation. But you couldn't come out,
Unless
right?
we're recommending at the same time.
That's right. The recommending at the same time would become problematic under this policy, unless the candidate had already passed what you're recommending is the base license initially.
Which we only do if they have in our instance, and I think other EPPs that do. One comment that came up, and part of this I think is, vocabulary usage, how we say things. Not all add-ons require 24 hours. People that use add-on, right? So somebody might be in special education and they want to add on severe and profound. They do a minor at our institution. They complete all the requirements, but it isn't 24 whole hours. Or some areas don't have a test like BK, but they do have to do ed TPA.
Right. Well, there's no instance where a candidate would ever have to do 2 ed TPAs, right? So,
Shouldn't be. Right. That's
right.
yeah.
And on so I want to make sure we're not conflating an add-on with an endorsement. So endorsements require fewer credit hours. They're not really a license area in the sense that they just allow the candidate to teach a certain portion of their day in that area. We've largely kind of gotten away from them, but I think there are 3 that still exist, and I don't know if we're covering that policy or not, but so I think that one's a little different. We could certainly add an endorsement with to an IPL. This policy wouldn't preclude an endorsement added to an IPL without passing the licensure exams.
That's how I read it and said to my folks, but I think people often say add-on rather than saying endorsement, right? The other thing that comes up fairly often is some middle grades is a good example, for instance. Many of our programs used to have multiple content areas or at least 2. It's really difficult to do that these days because of restrictions on number of hours. So many have gone to only 1 content area. But if a student chooses to complete all of the hours required and take the exam, we will go ahead and recommend them for the license. But in reading this, they should still meet all the parameters. So I feel like those instances are okay. We're just trying to save them having to turn right around and pay the $100 again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, one of the unarticulated incentives or desired outcomes of this is that folks will recognize the benefits to completing their licensure exams while they're under the tutelage of their EPP, instead of doing that as they enter the workforce. And we know the minute they enter the workforce, they're moving from that kind of really dedicated, focused support environment into they're in the deep end of the pool. And I think that's the intent. And hopefully the outcome of this is people will start recognize, hey, I could get 2 licenses if I really work to pass those exams before I get out of the EPP. I could get 2 clear licenses. I can, and I better position myself for adding other areas as I need to once I enter the workforce.
I agree 100%.
So, Dr. Weddington, I want to do a little check real quick on the capturing of the documentation and the discussion.
Sure.
Is that something you want staff to help with, or?
That would be great. I'm trying to take some stuff down as well.
So Hank, if you want to send me your notes too, but I'm taking some notes as
Okay.
well.
Great.
And I also have the spreadsheet up, the review spreadsheet, where you can put your recommendation actually on there. And then if it's not recommended as is, then what would you change? So I can bring that up and share that as well with the group. And
Yeah.
we can do that in real time right now.
Okay.
And Hank, I don't think we got the spreadsheet, but we got that Word doc, and I emailed you mine last night.
Yes, I got that. Thank you very much. I've added yours to mine.
Hank, I didn't do that. I'm sorry if I was supposed to do that. Kim, I'm sharing it with you right now, although it's
Oh, great. Sure.
I don't know how helpful it's going to be, but
Thank you, Chris.
you're welcome.
Just before we leave this one, I just want to make sure everything I heard was correct, that if a student at EP is completing everything to clear the first license, we could add the second license on if they had 24 hours of content and passed the praxis exam for that area.
Or
Not an and.
it's an or, yeah.
Or,
It's an
Okay.
or on the add-on requirements.
Okay, so if they've got the 24 hours, then they're good to go.
That's right.
Oh, perfect. Okay. That's
and
fine.
it has the or under 1A in there, I think.
Perfect. And do the EPPs get to decide if that content should count towards the 24 hours, or is that decision made somewhere else?
So before I answer that question, can we, well, no, let me answer your question. So we would have to see, DPI would have to see it on the transcript. Certainly, if an EPP, as part of their recommendation, wanted to point to what they're considering the 24 hours, that could be helpful to staff, because sometimes we've got questions about a certain course. We may not know the course description, so I don't think there's any issue with the EPP maybe submitting, a letter with the transcript saying, we identified these 24 semester hours with a grade of C or better as being applicable to that requested license area. I think, I'm speaking for Susan, but I think her staff would greatly appreciate that, because that keeps us from having to comb through course catalogs and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Hank, that's what
That
we
is
have our
helpful.
licensure officer do is do a letter, and sometimes she gets phone calls if they have questions just in practice, but hopefully that helps.
So I need to pull up the rule on this real quick, because I can't see both things at the same time. Oh, this is 307.
Uh-huh.
So I do want to point out, and this is fine, but this is something that you may want to recommend. The policy does not have the language of the IP. It can only be added to an IPL who's passed their licensure exams. The rule has the language, but if you read that policy, an applicant may request to add a new license area to an existing IPL or CPL to qualify for an additional areas on a teaching license. The applicant shall. Now, A and B go to the new license area, but the policy does not make it clear that the existing IPL has to meet the condition of having passed all their licensure exams. And so, for the purposes of, most people do not go to the administrative rules to understand what they need to do. They go to the policy. My suggestion to you is you could make that very clear by adding that requirement to the IPL to the policy, instead of of us having to surprise people and say, well, the rule actually clarifies this and you've got to, does that make sense what I'm saying?
I think that's a great idea, Tom.
Yeah. Will you restate that so we can write down what you're thinking?
Yes, so the policy does not clearly require an IPL holder to have passed licensure examinations as a condition of adding on another teaching area or another license area. The language of the policy could be modified to reflect the language of the rule.
Hey, Tom, Susan, while you're there, do we also want to note that ECGC and elementary can only be added by test because of the statutory requirement?
Oh.
We can't add those two by 24. Sorry. Maybe
No.
dialed in.
That's
When I get that. Oh.
I know.
So could we add a statement at the end of 1B that basically says you can't do it in that area? Just so that-
Excluding and that just lists those two areas or
Mhm,
something.
mhm.
Yes, I think we could. So the policies, of course, changing those is not as problematic or making these recommendations. What I need to check on, what we can add that notation or we can add that recommendation to add that to the policy. I need to really check with Ryan to make sure that statement is covered by existing rule in some way or through statute.
Okay.
So just so I'm clear, so to add it to the policy, it has to be covered by a statute or a rule?
I think that puts us on the firmest
Right.
footing for the
That
policy.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are in our box, Kim. We're looking at the policy needs to include the fact that a person with an IPL must have completed all testing before adding on another area, and that we're going to look into the exclusion of elementary and ECGC for this particular policy. Is that correct?
They can add those two areas to a teaching license by test, but not by 24.
Noise outside. Okay, so this one will be a no on that first sheet, but the rule is good. There were no changes there unless we need to put something about the exclusion in that one as well, or recommend that.
Yeah, it would be great, Dr. Weddington, if you knowed the rule, if you put no on the rule. And I mean, something as simple as DPI needs to consult with legal on a restriction for elementary ed and ECGC licenses, add-on licenses.
Okay.
You guys want to say an IPL holder must complete all testing for their initial licensure area prior to adding another licensure area? How do you want to say that?
Adding another teaching area.
Another teaching area. And what was that other thing that you guys were saying to also edit about this?
Well, on the rule, that
The
DPI
rule.
consult with legal on the exclusion of elementary and ECGC being
Okay.
added on through the 24 hours. Okay, that took longer than I thought it was going to, Jessica.
And these are the easy ones.
Yeah, I know, right? The licensure 017 and rule 0.0341 was the permit to teach. And again, this one seemed pretty straightforward. I didn't see any issues. There was a question from the field that I guess I'm not sure if it's clear or not, and maybe it is, but is there ever any way for a person to jump to a limited license without first going through a residency license program?
Well,
An IPL could.
you're right, an IPL, but
But they would have already gone through an EPP, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's at least for 1 year because the limited requires
Well-
licensure for 3 years. So in theory, they could have a permit to teach, then they could have an emergency, and then they could have 1 year of a limited. And then if they've got, of residency or an IPL, and then if they've got all the coursework, everything but the test, then in theory, they would qualify. We don't see that often, but it could happen.
Somebody has to move to the limited license in terms of salary scale. Are they stuck at the bottom throughout the entire career if they stayed in a limited license forever?
limited license does accrue experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's just for me. Does anybody have any questions on this one or issues with it?
So I have a note for Dr. Evans. This is nothing I think we need to put on this, but in the policy and rule, in the policy under number 4, there's an extra article in there. For the purpose of certification for pay on the state salary schedule, a permit to teach shall be issued at the same level as that is how it reads on my end. Did we get, I thought that was in the notes that I had sent Ryan. Is there a later version that I'm not looking at, or does everybody else see as that?
Mine does not say that. Mine says a permit to teach shall be issued at the same level as that of a person who holds a bachelor's degree.
Great. And
And does it say, Tom, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Does it say A00?
it says who holds a bachelor's degree, A-level teacher license with 0 years of experience.
Okay, yeah, that's how we always issue those.
Okay.
The first iteration of license that can add experience is the emergency license.
That's right.
Except with the exception of international faculty, which is a whole different beast.
So I just don't have the version where Ryan corrected all those. Mine's still the old version where I sent him notes. So as long as that's taken care of, I'm good.
It is, Tom.
Right.
So I feel like that's a yes from the group.
I think so.
Mhm.
All right, licensure 019.
So I looked at this one. In general, overall, I think the narrative is clear. The language is fairly easy to understand. So if we're answering those questions, we did get one piece of feedback from the field about the fact that eligible non-public school isn't defined and a reference not clear. This actually connects to both of the ones I looked at, the 019 and 020 and the rules that follow. I found that pretty easily. There is a definition. It's a little bit hard because when you go searching for it, I put this in the notes that I sent to Hank. You find it. It's in GS 115C 555. And you find it separately as a part 2. And I think I know this is a little bit convoluted, but there is a, in LICN 20, there's a second sentence. Well, okay, I won't convolute things, but anyway, there's a link to the legislation in the rule, and it's not the full number. So when someone goes to find it, they can't find it anywhere. And that was what we got from the field. So I went searching and I can find it. So I guess maybe in Rule 0338 that goes with this one, it refers to the GS on line 24. So I don't know if we could put the full number or something along those lines to address that. I don't know that I feel that this is wildly problematic, but one of our actions was to be sure to look at all the references from the field, and someone said they felt like they weren't sure and couldn't find where an eligible non-public school was defined. So that's why I'm bringing that up. I don't have any notes at all on 0339 that goes with this, just the 0338.
So the issue with this one, Dr. Winter, is that this definition was passed in a session law from this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the public facing table of contents for the statutes of state of North Carolina has not updated it.
Right.
So everybody was right that it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist if you go on the website.
Right.
If you go back to the session law that amends it, then yes, you can see
Yeah.
it.
And that's how I found it. And honestly, if you just Google around looking for it, you can find it too. I mean, because that's where I started, and I went back to the full one, but also, so you can find it. It's findable, but yeah. So I guess in theory, then, based on what you're saying, Tom, it eventually will get righted and become a moot point.
Presumably. I mean, as much as I can answer for the General Assembly, I would say
Yeah.
yes, but
Okay. So again, I didn't think any of that was wildly controversial, but that's literally the only things I found on this one.
now I think you could make the recommendation that you include the session law.
In 0338.
Yeah, and just so that if something weird happens where we can't ever get the General Assembly to update this,
Yeah.
at least we can point people to where it is in law.
Hank, I think that's a good idea if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's great. I've added that to the list. So we'll know, I guess we'll yes the policy and no the rules.
Okay.
In .0339, there was no issues, right, Kim?
I didn't see anything that was an issue.
Okay. Easier.
So I also looked at LICN 20. Same thing, narrative clear overall, language is fairly easy to understand, didn't feel controversial. I have heard from a couple of people, there's a final sentence in number 2 in LICN 20 that says, under these circumstances, the recommendation of the EPP is not required. The feedback that I got from some folks was the sort of why not, that requiring that is a way to document concerns. A couple of people said they felt like, is this a way to box out the EPP? So I'm just putting that out there, that does that sentence need to be there?
So this is creating So 1A establishes the requirement for the recommendation. And I think 2 creates a situation where 1A can not be required. And so that's my concern is in 1A, we say, in order to get an IPL, the EPP has to say yes. And then 2 allows for the direct licensing or the direct licensing by the State Board of Education without the EPP's recommendation.
Right.
I see what you're getting at. The language seems to be kind of pejorative or dismissive of the EPP.
Yeah.
And that's certainly not the intent.
And we don't want to be the barrier. I mean, I'm speaking for all EPPs and recognizing at the same time, I don't speak for all EPPs. We're not looking to be the barrier, but it is complicated in the sense that someone can complete all the requirements to graduate and not be a candidate that you would recommend. So for instance, we do not automatically recommend for a license without all of the licensure exams and a TPA. However, we afford the LEA the opportunity to appeal on behalf of a candidate when they hire someone for a full-time position, and then they fall under the rules. And so, this is a little bit like one of those circumstances. Again, I'm not sure that I feel super strong about it, but it was feedback that I heard, and so I wanted to bring it up.
Kim, can you say that one more time? When would you not recommend somebody?
Well, I think there are times when it's more subjective than people think it is, right? The recommendation for a licensure sometimes someone can complete the baseline of all the requirements, but not necessarily be a candidate. But for instance, at my institution, we require everything to be complete. Ed TPA, all the licensure exams, everything. It's a requirement, or we will not recommend you for a license. However, if you go and get hired, your LEA can appeal on your behalf. And they say why, which is typically, we've had a very difficult time hiring in this field. This person was a good candidate, yada, yada. And we'll lay it out there. And sometimes it's a letter that I write, and sometimes it is this person is 28 points away from passing Pearson reading. They've taken it 5 times. Statistically speaking, they're not going to pass. We want you to understand the data around this person because an LEA is investing a lot of money, right, in hiring this person. And sometimes miracles happen. I mean, we've all seen that, but I think, you're laying out that data. So anyway, I don't know. I think this is a bigger ball of wax than just this sentence. So I don't know what we could recommend, because I hear what Tom's saying about it allows the next step. Like the first one in the policy requires the completion of the EPP, and then the second one allows the LEA to move forward. And so I don't know what we could recommend to change, unless you guys thought of an idea.
Well, I am sensitive to the fact and I recognize the fact that the language as written sounds exclusionary to the EPP. And I think it could be crafted in a way that doesn't make it sound so much like that. So the governing body of a school unit may request an IPL applicant under its appointment, all that, who's met all the requirements, but doesn't, but in some way saying that, but
Could
cannot receive or cannot, is not eligible for the recommendation by the EPP, can appeal directly to State Board of Education. So it's just laying out the circumstances, not making that statement under these circumstances, the recommendation of the EPB is not required. That I think that's the problematic statement.
Yep.
It could be framed more in a set of specific circumstances that doesn't have that kind of exclusionary language that allows the board to address those appeals from the public school unit. Because I mean, the line we're trying to walk is allowing the candidate to have the thing that is provided for them in the law, which is 3 years to pass the test, but not encroach on the EPP's ability to make their recommendation for licensure.
So Hank, for our notes, and Kim, the two places we're talking about is the final sentence of number 2 in LICN 20 and line 24 and 25 in Rule 0336. That's where the sentence is. And I really did think about this late yesterday, and I wish I could have come up with a lovely alternative sentence, but I just haven't yet. It's been a long week. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's great. That's helpful. I like the idea of that language change there, to tweak it a little bit in the last sentence of the policy. So thank you for that. So maybe we'll know the policy to look for change in verbiage for that final sentence. And does that also need to be reflected in the rule, Kim?
Yes, it's final sentence of number 2 in the policy and line 24 and 25 in the rule. Yeah.
Okay. So
Tim, are we okay with LICN 019? Or was there some kind of edit there that needed to happen? The session law, was that also supposed to be added to that as well? The session law reference?
I think does the session law just get referenced in the rule?
The rule.
Yeah, it's on line 24. The incorrect one is on line 24 of 0338. Let me bring up. Yeah, I don't.
So it needs to be corrected in 0338 is what you're saying. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, and I'm looking at the LSA. Correct.
So then 019 is good to go. Is that right?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
And that was all of the ones that I looked at.
Hank, I had the next two if you're ready. I think I had the next two on the list if you're ready for me to
got it.
do that. Yep, I had LICN 023, and the rule that went with that was 0340, and LICN 025 and 0344 was the rule that went with that. And I'll say everybody on this call is far more of an expert in this area than I am. So y'all feel free to correct me if any of this that I say is incorrect. But I guess as I read it, I felt like starting with 023 and 0340, I felt like the rule and the policy were written in plain, understandable language. I didn't feel like there was any real special assistance needed to interpret the rule or policy. Kim, I didn't see any feedback from the field in any of the documentation that I reviewed, but I'm afraid that I may have missed it somewhere. So is that accurate?
I think you're correct. The only feedback that was received was what was attached to that email. I mean, it was one Word doc. I think it was about 10 pages total.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, I didn't see any feedback.
I didn't.
Okay. I was good because I was really afraid that I missed something and certainly don't want to do that. I don't know if anybody has any feelings on that, but that was kind of my take on it, that it was easy to understand. No special assistance needed. I do think it's consistent with what districts are currently doing, but I don't claim to know what all districts are doing. Tom, maybe you would know more about that than I do.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in here that changes any kind of practice, even from, even from folks that may be trying to make it happen without meeting the requirements. I mean, I think they understand where we've rejected folks. We would continue to reject those same folks under this policy. So, or we would not, I don't see this as anything in this would cause us to reject someone that we have in previous years approved. So, Susan can, well, yeah, Susan can speak to that too, if she thinks there's anything in here.
I just said, Kim, can you send me a link to these docs? I'm not sure I have the latest,
I know I don't, but
and I don't want to fire off an opinion and send y'all in the wrong direction.
now I will say I did receive a piece of feedback from one of the board members on this, where it says the last section of 2B, the last sentence, DPI shall not consider EVOS data from the 1920 or 2021 school year when considering a request to renew an unlimited license. So the board member pointed out that no data exists for 2019-20 because we didn't develop the growth model. And I acknowledge that, but I wanted to make sure I kept it in there because I didn't want people to forget that that year didn't have growth and be like looking for it and send me a bunch of emails saying, I can't find my 1920 EVOS data as part of this renewal application. And we just go ahead and say that it will not be considered so people don't look for it and forgot that we didn't have EVOS in that year. And then on the 2021, we do have EVOS. It's not I mean, it's limited in terms of what we have, but there is another policy that says that can never be used for anything other than research purposes. So we want to make sure that's excluded from any of this. And that's it on this policy that I think.
So
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The issue there was just that 2019, 2020 doesn't exist, and I mean, I don't know. I would think leaving it in there just makes it, even though it doesn't exist, it does keep people from going to try to find it. You're right.
That was my rationale. And she got it, and she was like, okay, I see that, but I just wanted to call it. That's the only piece of feedback on this that I've ever heard on this particular policy.
So I guess that's a yes for this one for 023. Kim?
I think so.
Okay.
Just one question, Susan or Tom. And I asked this in the beginning, but maybe I need to rephrase. So limited license, if I read the policy, it references a general statute, but I don't have that in front of me. Does that preclude somebody from jumping immediately into a limited license? Do they have to go through something else first before they can jump into that, I guess is the question.
They have to have held a license for 3 years
Okay. Okay. So
and completed everything towards converting to a CPL except for testing, which could include content test and EdTPA.
gotcha.
So, Hank, a person could hold a permit, an emergency, and after year one of the residency say, I want to go on a limited license. It's doubtful that that would happen because it's a bit of work for the LEA, and the LEA is going to look at that and say, you got 2 more years on this residency.
Yeah.
You need to write it out. But the situation where it would arise is where that person has completed all their coursework requirements and doesn't want to enroll in an EPP in order to renew the license. In that case, there is an advantage for the district to go ahead and request a limited license. It takes the requirement for them to continue enrollment when they've already completed coursework off the table. So that's, and we try very hard to tell folks not to have them do their coursework under the permit to teach or the emergency license, to focus on the content, but that doesn't always happen.
Great. Thank you for the clarification. All right. 025.
Yep. The next one I had was 025 out of state applicants, and the rule that goes with that is 0344, I believe. Yeah, that one I felt the same way. I guess a note that I made was that I felt basically the same way, but that some people might be confused by the subsection under number 1, initial professional license, subsection I have completed an educator preparation program recognized by the jurisdiction in which the EPP has its principal place of business. And this may just be my ignorance, but I don't know that was crystal clear to me, but maybe people who live in the EPP world, that is more clear.
It's more on our end, Chris. And so
Okay.
this is around, so what we're trying to do is, there are lots of online universities. So I'm thinking the one
All
that
right.
the Southern University of New Hampshire, they have so many ads that, and so what we're saying is, since that is really a national kind of, they take people from anywhere. What we are saying in North Carolina is where your primary, the state in which you have your primary place of business, wherever the brick and mortar is, or wherever your business license is certified.
So in that example, it would be New Hampshire.
That's right.
assuming?
They would have to
Okay.
be approved as an EPP in New Hampshire, because what happens is somebody may be doing business out of New Hampshire. They can't meet New Hampshire standards, but they're approved by Mississippi to be an EPP. For us, that's not good enough. It's got to be wherever your primary place of business is. So Phoenix has to be in Arizona and so forth.
Okay. That I mean, that explanation helps me. Like I said, when I was reading through it, I just thought, I don't know that I fully understand that, but I do now. So,
And the use of the word jurisdiction is a bit of a shift for us. Historically, we've talked about out of state. And the reason for that is we see so many, well, uptick in international applicants that didn't really meet the out of state criteria, thus this shift in the language to jurisdiction.
okay. So reading through it, I guess that was the only question that I had. I do think that it was a little more complicated than the limited licensure policy, but I think a lot of people that will be able to understand it, and I don't know that it's too complex. Feedback from the field, again, maybe I just overlooked something. I hope I didn't, but I didn't see anything there. Did I miss something?
No.
Okay. Okay, good. I do think it's in line with current practice as far as I know, to the extent that I know. And so, yeah.
So I want to direct my question to Hank and Kim on number 4. Well, actually, Chris too, because you're probably going to deal with this. So
Okay.
this comes up a lot, and I want to make sure this section is clear. You come to us from out of state, and at the time of your initial application, you apply for middle grades math. And you apply for that, and we give you a CPL in middle grades math based on your out-of-state work. Then you remember, wait, I passed the middle school science test back in my home state. What this is saying is, once you are approved for a North Carolina license in your initial application, anything else has to meet North Carolina requirements. You can no longer use out-of-state requirements. And so I just want to make sure that you guys are reading that the way, I mean, when you read that, that's kind of clear to you that, or you couldn't hold a North Carolina license and then go take the Mississippi test in middle grade science and submit that for evidence of adding it by the licensure area. But the big thing is basically everything you bring in initially to North Carolina has to be brought in that initial application, or once we issue that license, we can no longer consider anything for you from out of state. Everything is the North Carolina rules. Just want to make sure that was.
So I read it, and I think that's very fair.
I do too.
All right. All right. That's the one that I think is causes us a lot of pain with out-of-state folks. Is they do the initial one first, and then they try to come back and give us 4 or 5 other license areas.
So I just wanted to double check that rule 340. That one's a yes as well. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. And then also 339, that's the RLPD, the residency license PD. That was good to go, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to
That
make sure.
That was
And
good.
then
Reflected our work in PEPSC, which is great.
yes. And then 025, Chris, we're good to go on that one.
Yes.
Okay. And then also the rule, the 344.
Well, and I say yes. 025 is the one that we're currently looking at. So I think that's a yes. I don't want to jump the gun.
Yes on that one.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And then also 344.
Yep.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. And we have about 9 minutes left of the meeting before the next group comes in.
Let's see if what we can do here. 026, the international faculty license. I didn't see anything that gave me any pause at all. It felt clear to me. The only question that I had was, I assumed that in the rules, when we're just marking through the old rule that used to accompany that particular number, we're just doing that for efficiency's sake to have that number for, I didn't, you know, it went from being requirements for a permit to teach to an international faculty license. So it struck through. So we're just reusing a number because
That's,
okay,
that's right.
that's what I assumed. I just wanted to make sure. So I didn't see any issues with that one, but I would welcome any comments on it from the group. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that I saw anything either.
Yeah. That one felt really clear. I mean, this one and the active duty military, the 028 were both, I thought, really well written and specific to help people who are in all the different situations they may be in during that time. So I think that's,
And also the rules that correspond with that too, Hank?
yeah. I mean, it feels,
Okay.
that one felt really good to me as well, the 028, and it feels like we're doing right by our service people who are in
Okay.
active duty and their spouses. So unless anybody else felt something was off there, I'm great with that one too.
Okay. I'll mark that as such.
And we did it with 2 minutes to spare.
So since you have that to spare, I'd like to go back to 023.
Okay.
And I was hesitant to bring it up, and then I was just like, well, that's why we're here. It struck me, and the military service one that we just read reinforces this. So at the end of the military, it provides for the portability of the limited license in the case of a change in the service person's orders, military orders. The policy 023 does not in any way indicate the non-portability of the limited license. And I know it's in statute, but again, I think that people tend to go to the policy and not the law. And by potentially having that, just the statement that of the non-portability of the limited license in the policy is going to keep us out of a lot of headaches. I mean,
I agree.
clearly, if somebody comes back to us, we can point to the law, but why do we want? I mean, if the people read the policy, I mean, I'm just making the assumption that LEAs go to the policy manual, PPPs go to the policy manual. It's not even in the rule of the non-portability. Now I need to check with Ryan and see, is his idea that this was only about the issuance and not about the conditions that surround holding that license? I'm not sure what it is, and I'm not sure why it didn't occur to me till now. But
Same.
when I looked at it again, I was like, there's nothing in here that says you can't take that license to some other LEA.
And that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal.
So then Tom and Susan, can we just, as the subcommittee, can we make that recommendation that you consult DPI to consult with legal, potentially add the statement?
Yeah.
Works.
And I have to say, you guys, this is really helpful for me too. Like, as I
Mhm.
talk through this with a different set of eyes, with a different set of perspectives, it really helps me look at this a little differently. I have a very focused view on this, and you guys have helped me expand that a bit and find places that I didn't even realize things could be clearer. I don't think there is anything really problematic in here, but I think you guys have surfaced a lot of areas for me where it could be a whole lot clearer.
Well, it's complicated work, and we joke about that. It's been years now since I've been the licensure officer, many years. And we still have sit downs where we talk through things that we thought were black and white and easy policy that just aren't when situations come up. And so I would just say back to you that I'm so appreciative that you are here, Andrew, Susan, Kim, like, because on our end too, the same is true for us. We'll have that specific lens. So it's really helpful to have you all here and help us.
Thanks to everyone. I know we're over now, but thank you so much. Good conversation, and I feel good. I don't know if on 023, Kim, we need to do a
Make it.
yes, no, but say that Tom's going to talk with Ryan about whether the policy is about issuance or if it's about circumstances for holding that license, so that we could include the non-portability if needed. And then I think we're good.
Thanks, everybody. And hey, Paula.
Hey, my apologies. I'm in New Mexico, and I don't know, something happened with my calendar because I actually thought I was logging in 5 minutes early.
No, you're on time. We just have a little overlap.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, I got worried. I was
Thank-
like, did I just miss the whole?
No. This is a different meeting prior to your
Oh,
meeting.
okay,
You're
got
all
it.
good. Thank you, Hank and committee,
Thank y'all.
subcommittee.
Thanks, guys. Hey, Kim, I don't know if this is allowed or not, but I actually have a few minutes before my next meeting. Is it possible to listen in? Because basically what Tom was saying a while ago, this is incredibly helpful for me because this is not work that I do every day.
Oh, absolutely. You can sit in. Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
I'll be quiet.
It's okay, Chris.
Y'all had me scared for a minute. I thought, oh my gosh,
No, we just have multiple subcommittees, and
you
one
know, it's
was
weird when
right
I'm
after
in
the
Mountain
other.
Time. I'm like, I don't even know what time zone I'm in, but I guess Albuquerque, New Mexico is Mountain Time.
Well, it's hard to tell when you're down in the Southwest because some of them use daylight savings time, some of them don't.
Don't exactly.